myself. My name's Paul Klein. I work at the School of Medicine. I'm the evaluator there. So what does that mean? I give out surveys and do some statistics, um, and I make reports, and then we try to make sure that the program that this medical school offers is in alignment with what the school really wants. Are the graduates, are they producing graduates that of the type that they want? And so why am I doing this? This doesn't have anything to do with the School of Medicine, and it doesn't have anything to do with the School of Modern Languages. So I can pretty much do what I want, and nobody is going to get upset. So just to let you know, so I lived in Italy in 1994, 95, and in the house that I lived in there, we spoke Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish for the first 3 months. I was in silence, of course, but that's where I learned my languages. And so my Spanish, my second language, I guess, would be Spanish. But I picked up some Italian. And what this talk is about is what I've done the last year to learn French. I kind of felt like, I always kind of wanted to learn French. And so that's the story that I'm going to give you. And you can apply it to any language you want. All right? So why this present? I might come back to this slide, but a lot of people ask me, or they tell me, I want to learn Italian, I want to learn Spanish. Most of them want to learn Spanish, and I'm excited about it. I know you can do it, and so I thought, well, gosh, I'm gonna give a talk and tell them that they can do it and how to do it. Here's the outline. Most of it is going to be on my last, I guess it's 14 months now of learning French. And then the second part is kind of how you need to think about learning a language. The last part is motivation and some local resources. Okay? The method that I use for French, it's not the best method. Not the best method. I know there are better methods out there, but this is what I use, and it kind of works for me. You have to find what works for you, and then that's the best method, right? So this might be, but I know it's not the quickest method. All right, so a little bit of history. Let's say, 5 or 6 years ago, I was working on a doctorate, and I wanted to learn French. So I got a textbook. I got some tapes from the library, Pimsleur, which is a kind of a question answer. They say a phrase in English, and you have to repeat it in French. And I did that. I did that on the bus on the way to class, and then I would go to the meetups. I would go to the French. There's a French meetup that meets every Thursday in Louisville. Very consistent. And I would go and I would sit there, once or twice every 6 months. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't understand anything. And I would get very discouraged. And I would go home and forget it. And then 6 months later, I do remember one time I came and I said, I come every 6 months, one time, and then I'll be back the next 6 months. Because I got so discouraged, And that was the story of my language learning French, all right? So what changed? Well, in February last year, someone gave me this book, this Fluent Forever book. And so a lot of what I did is based on that book. I think the Louisville Free Public Library has that book. So you can get it. And I read it, and it made sense. And the first thing that Gabriel Weiner says is you have to learn how to make the sounds and how to understand the sounds. The thing about language is it's not just a mental process. It's not just intellectual. It's physiological. It has a lot to do with your muscles, like your muscles in your mouth, for example. So the first thing that I did is I found on the internet this instructional video on how to produce the French sounds. And you have to know what to do with your mouth. And you have to practice that. and it's good to have, like, this is excellent. It has actually pictures, videos of how people move their mouth. So that's one of the first things you have to do. All right, and you also you get tired. It's kind of like if you're doing lunges. Like if somebody told me to do a, I'm saying this because I went to the gym and there was an instructor there trying to help me, and they said do some lunges, and I hadn't done lunges in like 20 years, and my legs were hurting really bad that night. It's just like that's the same thing that happens to your mouth. Like your muscles get tired, so you need to practice producing the sounds and listening to them, and that's the first step, according to Gabe, and that's what I did. And I'm actually still working on that part. The other thing I want to tell you, when I learned Spanish, I remember trying to produce the sound the jota, like it's kind of guttural, like jota, and I couldn't do it. And like, I was kind of a perfectionist at one point, and I would have just thought, oh, I could never do that. Well, I kept doing it, and now I can do it. Like, what I'm trying to say is, you can teach yourself to make those sounds. Don't get discouraged if you can't do it. Don't say, oh, since I speak English, I can't make some of these weird sounds. You can teach yourself. I remember a Russian friend of mine, Yulia. She said, I'll take you a year to get the French R. She said, because she learned French. She said, I'll take you a year. So that was encouraging to me. I mean, it's a long time, but I could get it. Okay, so the first thing is the sounds. And the second thing for me was to get some vocabulary. The book's author has a website, and you can download a list of like the most common words, 625 words. And so Lent was coming up, and I wanted to do something for Lent, so I said every day I'm going to study some vocabulary. And the nice thing about the words is it gave you also a recording of a native speaker saying the word. So if you notice, this is a free flashcard app called Anki. You can download it. You can put it on your computers. It comes as a free app for Android. The iPhone app is quite expensive. It's like $25. So I never bought that. I downloaded it on my Mac, and I did it for 2 months every day, like 3 months, and I learned a base core of vocabulary. So if you look at this flashcard, it's got the French word toi on the top, but it doesn't have any English. It has an image, and it has the sound. Like when you flip the card, the sound comes out. So you have all these things in your memory. You have smells, and you have memories, and images. You just need to replace the label that is pointing to all that stuff. So it's not good to just replace an English word with the second language. When I listen to these vocabulary words, I hear the native speaker's voice, and I could tell you if it's going to be a man or a woman and how she says the word. That's how you start to memorize and really, keep vocabulary. There's another interesting thing here. This has an algorithm called spaced repetition. And so what does that mean? Well, as you can see, there's 4 choices. When the word comes up, you can say, oh, I don't know it, I want to hear it again. I want to do it again within 10 minutes. If you kind of know it, you can hit the next one. It's graduated. Every time I knew the word, I just hit good. And it will space time in between when you just saw the word and the next time it brings the word up in the deck. Because if you already know the word, you don't need to keep seeing it. You want to see it when you're almost ready to forget it. So that's very common now in language learning, spaced repetition. I haven't used this deck in a long time, so this says like 6 months, a year. You're going to get things like, well, this is 10 minutes, 1 day, 3 days, or a month. Seems like there's some, this card's actually flipped. It should have the image. You should see the image and then try to figure out what the word is, and then flip the card. Okay, the next thing I did I use Michelle Thomas. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to learn the grammar. You can get a book and follow the textbook, but I I found this Michelle Thomas recordings at the library, and I think it's really good. So I would listen. I have a little. Let's see if I can play this.
French with Michel Thomas, recording 4.
The word for who is key. Key. But Q-U-I. Who has the key? Key means who. Key. So who is there would be key. Is always key. K-A. There. Yes.
So he's got. Oh, sorry. He has two students in front of him, a male and a female, and he teaches them different languages. He was originally Polish, and he was in World War II as a Secret Service. I'm not sure exactly the story, and he learned many languages, and he was famous for teaching languages. He taught very famous actresses and actors and famous people. So that's what I learned, and eventually, I would listen to this stuff on the bus or waiting for the doctor. I guess my point is, besides those vocabulary words at the beginning where I did learn like every day in front of my computer, I didn't really sit down and learn it. I was always active learning and listening, to the language. Now, looking back at it, I think it would have been better if I would have really dedicated a certain amount of time to it. But you don't have to. I mean, you can always add, you have to find time in your schedule just to listen, when you have some downtime. And you guys, did you have a question back there? Anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand. All right, so the next thing. Okay, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do when you learn another language is listen. Listen to tons and tons and tons of the other language. And I found this app. This is paid. This is like $10 a month. And I really started this in December. And I think this is the thing that's helped me kind of get to the next level with French. First of all, this is a list of podcasts. You can search out with the internet. You have access to videos, podcasts, so much of the other language that, even if you're not doing French, you just go out there and you have to find things that you're interested in the other language. It's not, at the beginning you're kind of stuck. You have to learn basic vocabulary. But once you get to a certain point, the key to persevere is to get things that you're interested in. I gave something like this talk to my yoga instructor. I said, get books in French that are about yoga. That's what's going to keep her going. But, so what does this app do? The thing I like about this app is it gives you the text. It'll give you the text in the foreign language, and it gives you vocabulary. If you don't know the word, if you haven't seen the word, it hasn't come up in the app. It's blue. It has a blue box. And I've already studied these words, so there's no blue box. But the nice thing is, if you click on it, it gives you the translation if you don't know it. And I like that because if I'm reading a book, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking up words. It's already there, and you can upload your own material. If there's an article you want to read, you can upload it, and then you don't have to keep looking up words. So that's one thing I like about the app. The other thing is it has some basic lessons that has the native speaker reading the text. So like one of the things I used to do, I used to listen to this news and Easy French every day, and it was kind of going in one ear and out the other. Like I couldn't get it. I listened to a ton of it. I couldn't get it. So with this, I listen to it, I read the text, and then I listen to it again, and I try to pick out the words. Let me.
Mais vous devez me donner 500
So
euros maintenant.
it's a normal
Et si je vous faisais simplement
French-speaking,
un chèque de
very
500
basic
euros,
phrases and
accepteriez-vous?
vocabulary.
D'accord, remplissez-moi un chèque et je ferai ce que vous avez dit. De quelle banque provient le chèque?
La Banque du Crédit Régional.
Je n'ai jamais entendu parler de cette...
Okay, so that's why I like this app. And all the users around the world, they start uploading things, and then you can, there's some TED Talks out there. There's some on traveling. There was one on, what's that city? Annecy. There was one on Annecy, right? So I downloaded that one, and um, what else? And it has flashcards. It has other things. I thought this was a good app. This doesn't have to be what you use. My point here is you have to listen a lot. That's the most important thing. I read something last night from an expat that lived in France for a year. And they were telling about their journey in France. One was a photographer, one was an author. And they said, when we got there, everyone was really, they were living by Toulouse, and they were very nice to them. A couple would ask them over for dinner, and they started this nice relationship. But after a couple nights of dinner where they really couldn't understand each other and they were pantomiming and everything, well, they stopped getting invited to dinner. I mean, that's just not very fun, And I'm thinking to myself, you have a whole year in France. I mean, if you go anywhere, learn it here. Learn it here. And you can go over there and make, wonderful relationships and just improve. Let me see. So I think it's I like this because it gives you an idea of what you're actually listening for. And then you really try to, it's physiological. It's physiological. It's not like being smart. It's not about being smart. It's about training your ear to be sensitive to sounds you're not used to hearing. Right now, if somebody speaks English, it catches on to that. But a foreign language, it shuts it out. And you want to start listening for it. One last thing. I used to listen to it on the treadmill, too. It keeps track of how many times you listen to it. 43 times. Same thing. It's so basic French. It's so boring. Very boring. This story is about, I think this one's about, it's called Who Is She? And a woman is upset because her brother is dating someone and there's an inheritance. And she doesn't want that to get married because she doesn't want the inheritance to go to the woman. I listened to that over and over. So boring. I mean, I'm saying, like, at the beginning, it's not so great. It's not so great. Yeah. So, after that, start listening to yoga or whatever. The last part is communicating. Luckily, in Louisville, there's a very consistent French meetup. I'm trying to figure out why that is. Because if you already speak French, maybe you wouldn't want to go to the meetup, but the people do. And I appreciate that. So I will say this. After I listened to those, I had that vocabulary, I started going to the meetup, and I started understanding some of the words they were saying, and I told myself, no wonder I didn't understand anything. I didn't even know the words or how they sounded, right? So, right there, that's when I started to catch on. I started to catch words. And then, I started to speak. Every time you use the new language as a tool to communicate, you're going to learn a little more, right? This kind of reminds me of dancing, because the best way to learn how to dance, and you guys know this about me, and so does Aida back there, the best way to learn how to dance is to get out and start dancing. You have to get out and start dancing. And the best way to learn a language is to start using it. You just have to start using it. But for me, it's better for me to get a little bit of the feel for the language, or else what's going to happen? I'm going to get discouraged. It's better to just jump in, but if you're going to let it get to you and get discouraged, I'm a little bit like that, then I think it's better to listen and listen and listen until you start to feel comfortable, and then you can go out and do it, right? All right, so you have to decide. I think the method that I just told you about learning the vocabulary and listening, that's really not the fastest way. Fastest way is to start communicating, right? With the words you have, piece them together. The dance moves that you have, start piecing them together and start talking, right? That's the fastest way. But this way has worked for me. So where have I gotten, right? So, I went to a talk on Friday night that half was in English and half was in French, and I could understand the French perfectly. I feel like I'm really good. I was in Paris. I went to a party. There were 5 men and 5 women and no English. And I felt fine. I was trying to communicate. I could understand a lot. Um, I feel like this year has been so beneficial for me. It's like a huge plus in my life. Um, if you go to YouTube, there's all kinds of polyglots out there. And this is one, Luca is from Italy. You'll start running, Benny's one of them. The other guy is, Steve Kaufman, the link. They all give really good advice and videos, and they're excited about it. But Luca made this graph and said, language learning is like a plateau. I really believe that. Like you can't really tell you're getting better. You're just flat. And then all of a sudden you notice, hey, I'm doing okay. But the part that I want to talk about is where it says amateur. That's what I call hell. That's the hell period. And I got that word from my friend from Brazil. She goes, I got through the hell period. And I was like, I get that hell period. You have to go through that hell period. It's when you're learning and you're studying and you're putting a lot of time in, and you go to the next meetup after one that you felt like you were getting better, and you can't understand anything and you can't say anything and you get discouraged. All it takes is one night of discouragement. And like it happened to me, I would stop studying for a month. I'd stop studying for a month. So what I put up here is let yourself be in the hell period. Instead of like getting discouraged, say, I'm in the hell period, of course. The problem is you don't realize how long the hell period is going to last. You think it's going to last forever. But it doesn't last forever. You can say, like, I'm in it a year, 12 months, 14 months, and you could say, 14 months, that's a long time to be in hell. It's not that long when you think about it. I learned Spanish 1994. 94. I haven't studied Spanish since then. None. People, I'm trying to say a little bit of time investment, you have something that's just like such a good gift for you. Something else I wanted to add to that. What else do I have? Live with imperfection. Don't expect to be perfect ever. The goal is not really to be perfect, just to communicate. You want to be able to communicate. And if you can do that with your hands and your body movements, whatever, that's okay. Don't compare yourself to others. There was a girl I remember that came to the meetup, and oh my gosh, in 2 months she was like throwing out words all over the place. Well, I'm not, like, you could let that discourage you, but I don't care. I'm getting better. My goal is just to improve. Some people say there's no talent in languages work. No, there's some people to me are very good at it. I'm confident in giving this talk to you because I don't consider myself very good at it. I'm good at math. Yeah, I don't think that helps in languages. But that's why I'm so confident that you can do this. Anybody could do this. Don't criticize yourself. I ask somebody, you want to learn a language? And they'll say, I have bad memory. Don't criticize yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Never criticize, whether you're studying a language or anything else. Don't criticize. There's no reason for you to criticize yourself. A lot of learning happens when you're happy. Just be happy. Like, all right, I forgot that word. I'm still going to be happy. That's what you need to think about. Okay, there's 2 local resources that could help you if you're doing French or Italian. I don't know too much about the Spanish to tell you the truth. But you know, I'd kind of like to get you guys to make a community. Alliance Francaise already has a group, classes, French classes. It's really good, if possible, to have a native speaker as a coach. Because you develop things that you don't know you're doing it, and it's good to have someone point them out to you. Language learning, you don't really have a teacher to me. You're the teacher. Like the student is the one that's really doing the learning. It's all about you. It's a solo journey. The instructor can point you and guide you, but really it's not about the lessons you have with the instructor. It's about what you do in between the lessons. You know. But nevertheless, it's good to have a native speaker. There's other methods. The shadowing method you take you start with Azamil. It's got, like, the text has French on one side, English on the other, and I think you hold the text in your hand and you listen to it because they have recordings, and you have to walk around. Like something about walking around, like, frees your mind. And that's called shadowing. If you type in shadowing, there's a whole theory on it. And some professor, he's got all kinds of lectures on YouTube, and it's very common. Memory palace is when you build like a castle and you build little rooms and associate words with each thing in the room to build a vocabulary. Moses, this guy's really neat. I just found out about him. There's a text service that you can text someone in the other country and just say, hi, how are you doing? You know, you go back and forth. Those are the kind of conversations you're going to have at the beginning when you meet someone anyway. I thought I might try that. And then what he does, I love this, he's got videos. He'll go to like learn Chinese. He'll go to a Chinese restaurant, just try talking to the person there because they'll speak Mandarin or Cantonese or something. I thought that's a great idea. Kind of put yourself in this places where that language is going to be spoken. The last guy, mimic method, he does it with songs. Somehow you learn how to say the things, learning how to sing, and he's got a whole method about that. All right, so this is why I'm giving this talk, basically. Like I said, I learned Spanish in 1994. My Italian's not bad. I mean, I'm not great at Italian, but I can go to a dinner and defend myself, as they say. Enjoy it. Enjoy the company. It's been one of the biggest blessings in my life. I haven't spoken Spanish or Italian in 15 years. Like, I'll do it, but if there's one person in the room that doesn't understand Spanish, I'm not going to do that because they're not going to understand me. So I've spoken more Italian in the last month than I have in 15 years. And it's been one of the biggest joys over that time, nevertheless, just listening to it. It's so beautiful. Like opera songs or, Andrea Bocelli. It's like, I was listening to somebody speaking Italian today, and I just love it. I love it. And it doesn't take that much time for you to invest, so you can get that. You'll be open to other cultures. You meet new and interesting people like all the time, even here locally, the people that I've met just trying to learn French. It's just opened my world. People you just normally wouldn't run into, and they're so interesting. The last part says becomes a part of you. Like, I was out to dinner with a group of people the other night, and they were talking. There's all these kind of HBO shows and Netflix shows, and they were talking about them. Like, I didn't have an idea. I didn't have a clue. I don't listen to them. I don't watch them. And they said, you're really missing out. And I said, no, I am missing out. Like, I believe that there's a lot of good entertainment out there. It's really good, very enjoyable. But I spend my time meeting people and learning a language. It becomes a part of me, and I like that. So it's up to you to decide where it is you want to put your time. If you want to learn a language, you're going to have to go home and figure out, why do I want to learn this language, and when am I going to do it? It doesn't have to be, a huge chunk of your time. Like, it might be listening on the way to work. That's what I did a lot, and it doesn't take that much time. like I said, the help period, 14 months, that's a long time. But it's not a long time. Depends on how you look at it. That's a picture of Orvieto, which is a small hill town outside Rome. Italy's magical. It's magical. And if you take that and you add the Italian language to it, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's so much of a culture that's captured in their language. And that's the Paris Opera Hall, the old one. I mean, there's something about that town that's so sophisticated, and if you add that French language on there, unbelievable. So this is salsa. You listen to a song that's salsa, and there's no way you can not be happy. If we have time, I'm going to let you guys go because you're probably bored, but it's been a great benefit for me, and I think you can do this. I really do. I think anybody could do this. And you don't have to be gifted. You just have to want it. If it's something that you want to do. This is kind of talking to Americans. I feel like gringos, we don't think we can do anything when it comes to languages. We just kind of say, we can't learn another language. You can do it. Do you have something, John?
Just maybe it's a tip. I don't know.
Yeah.
It works for me. When I go to Italy or I go to Spain, and I consider myself reasonably proficient in the language, but I always make it a point, even though I know what I want to say and I know I can say it quickly, I slow down because the person that I'm speaking to is a courtesy to me, is also going to slow down. We can always speed up if you feel comfortable doing it. But even though you know what you want to say and you can say it quickly, force yourself to slow down, pronounce each word carefully, and they will in turn slow
it down.
And make it much easier for you. And if you make a mistake, they will also usually very politely correct you.
That's a great point. I never thought of that. I mean, it's key to have your ears trained too.
Yeah.
Because anybody can put a sentence together, but it's when they respond is when you want to understand.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yeah, did you have something else?
I wanted to voice a resource. You were talking about text translation applications. There's an app called Hello Talk that I use. It works on Android and iPhones. It's very helpful for me. It allows me, right now, I'm trying to learn Russian, and I've met two people in Russia who's trying to learn English. And so we just
Yeah.
that.
What's the name of that?
Hello Talk, no space in between hello and talk.
iTalki, have you heard of that? That's the same kind of thing. It's called iTalki, but hello, do you have to pay for that or you just get on there? Might be minimal.
Maybe it was free, but I forget it. It's been a while since I first downloaded it, but I forget if it costs or not.
Yeah.
Also, I know a lot of people love music. Spotify, believe it or not, has a lot of language learning channels. Like if you just put like I want to learn Spanish or something like that, because
It'll come up.
like everything, every album, every CD that's in this world is on Spotify.
Those are great resources. I have this. I got the Iroquois Library tends to have very international community. So she gave me this. One of the librarians there. There's Duolingo. You might have heard of that. That's a free. That's the most popular downloaded educational app in the world. There's all kinds of good stuff out there. There's all kinds of good stuff. Let me just do this.